John Travolta is revealing the shocking loss of his wife, Kelly Preston, after her private battle with breast cancer.
John Travolta calls it a storybook moment when he danced with Princess Diana.
Behind the dazzling smile, iconic roles, and red carpet charm lies a side of John Travolta the public rarely sees. He's made the world dance, laugh, and cry on screen. But off-screen, his life has taken turns no script could have written. What if the most gripping chapter of Travolta's story wasn't filmed at all? A love that started most unexpectedly. A split-second decision that risked everything. A glamorous night that whispered of something more. And a devotion that outlived heartbreak. The truth is finally emerging. Not the tabloid noise, but the raw, quiet revelations that reveal who he really is. And it all begins with a single moment on a film set that changed his life forever. What did Travolta choose when fame and love collided? Keep watching. What you find may surprise you. The love that started on set. When John Travolta arrived on the set of The Boy in the Plastic Bubble in 1976, he was still on the cusp of fame. The made-for-TV film offered him a chance to showcase his dramatic abilities, but it became significant for an entirely unexpected reason. It was there he met Diana Highland, a seasoned actress with a powerful screen presence and an emotional intelligence that drew people in. Though she portrayed his mother in the film, their behind-the-scenes interactions quickly revealed a chemistry that went far beyond their characters. What started as a casual conversation between co-stars soon turned into something deeper. An unexpected romantic connection that surprised even them. The 18-year gap between Travolta and Highland raised eyebrows in the insular confines of the industry, but it was the strength of their bond that finally silenced the doubtful ones. It was not friends, castmates, and people in the industry who noticed that theirs was not a fling or a publicity stunt, but a genuine, emotionally rich relationship founded upon trust, shared humor, and admiration. Highland was said to have encouraged Travolta as a partner and as a mentor, making him aware of how the game played within the confines of Hollywood. Emotional pressure, skewed thought patterns, and the off chance of choking on success. For Travolta, Diana was even more than a romantic partner. She was also part of the stabilizing forces in his life, since he was still finding his footing within the industry. She believed in him fully, perhaps even before he believed in himself. Their love story is short in time, but very profound. In later interviews, Travolta would describe how he felt completely seen and understood by Diana, something no one had ever done for him before. While many in Hollywood might have acknowledged his talent or star potential, Diana recognized the emotional core in him. They had a passion for art and long philosophical conversations about personal growth. All these, along with openness, shaped the future of Travolta's relationships. Even after decades, he would call her his first true love, as he would like to put it, meaning that the depth of their emotional root left an indelible mark on his life. Their relationship did not occupy boxes in terms of timelines or titles. It was the soul and authenticity that would define it. But just as their love began to bloom, a silent shadow was already forming behind the scenes. Cancer's cruel grip. When John Travolta met Diana Highland, she was already grappling with a private battle that few outside her inner circle knew about. During the filming of The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, Diana was in the early stages of fighting breast cancer, a diagnosis she had kept largely to herself. Shortly after the film wrapped, she underwent a mastectomy in hopes of halting the disease's progression. For a time, it seemed like she had turned a corner, and both she and Travolta were cautiously optimistic about their future. However, the reprieve was short-lived. The cancer returned with greater force, spreading through her body in ways that no treatment could stop. As her condition deteriorated, Travolta remained steadfast. He put his rising career on hold and devoted himself entirely to Diana's care. The studio behind Saturday Night Fever could have pushed back or replaced him, but Travolta's focus never wavered. Even in the face of potential career damage, his only concern was being present for the woman he loved. In a heartbreaking revelation to People magazine, Travolta shared that Diana herself didn't fully realize she was dying until just 2 weeks before her death. The shock of that moment, learning her time was limited, added to the weight of those final days. Amid the depths of their silent struggle, they were diligently trying to keep these few moments they had, however fleeting, with peace and love. Diana and John strolled around the yard in what could be considered a golden moment in slow motion that was being made possible somehow by love and routine. On March 27, 1977, when Diana exhaled her last breath in Travolta's arms, he felt the stillness of her body collapsing before him. After all, in his mind's eye, it no longer felt so certain a future. All the concrete plans were set, looking for a house, dreaming of life after the wrap of his film, and thinking of the marriage that would never be. It was not just losing a partner. It was the erasure of a life he had already begun to live in his mind. During her memorial service, in symbolic grief, Travolta wore the white suit they had selected for this yet-to-begin chapter in Rio, a possible escape that had been envisioned as the beginning of a new phase in both their lives. Instead, it had become his tribute to her, a celebration garment that had quietly become a mourning expression. For John, Diana was never a passing fling or a neat, tied-off chapter. She was his first true love, and her loss left a raw and deep emotional bruise that colored every other relationship he ever had. Her fight against cancer and the dignity and strength with which she fought taught Travolta something about the fragility of life and the depth of interpersonal connection. Leaving fame behind, by the mid-1970s, John Travolta was rapidly becoming one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. After gaining national attention as Vinnie Barbarino on Welcome Back, Kotter, he was cast in Saturday Night Fever, a role that would soon catapult him to superstardom. The opportunity marked a turning point in his career, offering him a chance to headline a major film with global appeal. But just as Travolta was preparing to take that leap, his personal life demanded a very different kind of commitment. Diana Highland, the woman he had fallen in love with, was gravely ill. She needed him, not as an actor, but as a partner willing to stand by her in her final days. Their relationship had deepened quickly after meeting on the set of The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Diana's cancer, which she had quietly battled with initial surgery, had returned aggressively. Travolta, fully aware of the momentum his career was gaining, made the profound decision to leave the set of Saturday Night Fever and be with her. This wasn't a brief pause. It was a risk-laden choice in an industry where schedules and image are everything. Studio executives and producers could have easily turned on him, but for Travolta, the decision was never about calculation. It was about love and humanity. All of the final days were simple and filled with sadness. Travolta and Highland shared such quiet times at her house where they could take small, fleeting pleasures, such as short walks in the yard. The actor found peace within shattered hearts during a moment where time could be shared and did not have to be bitterly feared. March 27, 1977, saw Diana breathe her last in his arms, leaving Travolta with a weight of grief more immeasurable than he had ever known, and a new vision of life. Saturday Night Fever was completed by Travolta, who returned to the set to a continuation of shooting that was business as usual. But for him, the world had changed completely. He later went on record that he took that loss into the character of Tony Manero, infusing in the character's performance all the unuttered complexity of emotions he was living off-camera. Indeed, the sacrifice he made carved a lasting impression not only on the character closest to him, but on even the farthest of the fans, people thousands of miles away who will never understand his story. Choosing love over fame in the most public moment of his career gave people a view of him that was not expected. A young man willing to let go of the limelight to hold on to something far more sacred. Saturday Night Fever turned into a box office blockbuster because, by that measure, neither the value of the income it brought could be put against what it now meant to Travolta. The bittersweet truth would follow Travolta for years, a reminder that, even amid the glitz of Hollywood, real life, its heartbreaks and choices, runs deeper than any scripted role. Scientology and sorrow. John Travolta's path into the Church of Scientology was not driven by celebrity curiosity or career networking. It was rooted in personal tragedy. Following the devastating loss of Diana Highland in 1977, Travolta found himself overwhelmed by grief at a very young age. He had lost the woman he loved deeply, and with her went the future they had dreamed of together. Amid this emotional upheaval, Travolta turned to Scientology, a belief system Diana herself had been curious about before her death. According to Travolta, their conversations about the church prompted him to seek out its teachings as a way to cope with the emotional vacuum left behind. The Church of Scientology welcomed Travolta into its ranks, and over the years, he became one of its most visible and loyal celebrity members. For Travolta, the church provided structure and emotional tools during a period when his life was unraveling behind the spotlight. However, as his association deepened, so too did the public's scrutiny. The church had long been criticized for its controversial views on mental health, its rejection of psychiatric diagnoses, and its secrecy surrounding internal practices. These issues were mostly background noise for Travolta until tragedy struck again decades later, with the death of his son, Jet. Jet Travolta was diagnosed with Kawasaki disease and had had seizures since infancy. Numerous accounts, bolstered by family statements, subsequently verified that he was on the autism spectrum too. The Church of Scientology does not, however, officially acknowledge autism as a clinical condition. Following Jet's unexpected death at 16 in 2009, while on vacation with his family in the Bahamas, critics immediately targeted the Travoltas' beliefs. Public outcry came quickly that their devotion to Scientology could have dictated the type of medical attention Jet was receiving, or not receiving. Despite no official proof that religion was directly involved in Jet's treatment or supervision, the scandal fueled the family's already intolerable sorrow. Though there was public criticism and continuing controversy over the involvement of Scientology in his personal life, Travolta never publicly wavered from his faith. While other celebrity Scientologists, such as Leah Remini, departed the church and afterward revealed what they called manipulative tactics, Travolta stood by it. To him, Scientology was a spiritual haven created not in success, but in grief. His path with the church was never ever a matter of just belief. It was a survival tactic formed by loss and a quest for meaning in tragedy. Nevertheless, the intersection of his tragedies and the controversies surrounding the church placed Travolta in a difficult spot. Regarded by many as both a bereaved father and a figure at the epicenter of one of Hollywood's most divisive belief systems, princess and the movie star. In 1985, an unforgettable cultural moment unfolded at the White House. John Travolta, the heartthrob of disco-era cinema, twirled Princess Diana, the most photographed woman in the world, across the marble floor at a formal state dinner. Hosted by President Ronald Reagan and First Lady Nancy Reagan, the event brought together political dignitaries and Hollywood icons. But it was the unexpected pairing of Travolta and Diana that stole the spotlight. Dressed in a midnight blue velvet gown by Victor Edelstein and adorned with a sapphire and diamond choker, Diana looked every bit the fairy tale princess. When Travolta asked her to dance, at the quiet urging of Nancy Reagan. It became a 15-minute moment that history would never forget. Despite Diana's iconic public poise, she experienced a wave of panic just before stepping onto the floor. Travolta, sensing her hesitation, gently placed his hand on the small of her back and guided her with reassuring confidence. They danced to tunes from Grease and Saturday Night Fever, a nod to Travolta's cinematic legacy, while the world's press captured their graceful spin. At just 24 years old, Diana had already been thrust into royal life, motherhood, and international scrutiny. But that evening, she allowed herself to feel young and free, floating across the room with the Hollywood star she'd long admired from afar. What only a few people at the time realized is that the bonding between them didn't stop once the music faded. Palace insiders and subsequent coverage later revealed that Diana and Travolta exchanged secret letters after their now fabled dance. The princess, who had dreamed of dancing before being talked out of it because of her height, found in Travolta not only a dance partner, but a kindred spirit. For Travolta, still mourning the death of Diana Highland, the meeting held an unexpected depth of emotion. Even though their romance never developed, their bond was established through genuine respect, mutual vulnerability, and the uncommon intimacy of two figures of the public eye, finding a glimpse of humanity beyond their headlines. Travolta has repeatedly talked about the dance as one of the highlights of his existence, and even decades later, he talks about it with awe. He never revealed the letters Diana wrote to him, instead keeping her memory safe with silent dignity. When she died so prematurely in a car accident in 1997, Travolta spoke about his heartbreak, remembering how that chaste encounter had made an indelible mark on him. Their relationship, half fantasy, half reality, became a dear memory shared by both. Amidst their turbulent and decidedly different lives, they had shared a precious moment of togetherness. It is one of the most sentimental crossroads of celebrity and royalty in contemporary history. That magical night would linger in memory, but something else was quietly waiting to rewrite his future. A second chance at love. Years after the devastating loss of Diana Highland, John Travolta wasn't actively seeking romance. Her death had left a lasting emotional scar, and for a long time, Travolta found it difficult to open his heart again. That changed in 1987, when he met actress Kelly Preston on the set of the comedy film The Experts. From their very first encounter, Travolta was captivated by her warmth and energy. He later admitted it was love at first sight. But things weren't simple. Preston was married to actor Kevin Gage at the time, and though their relationship was nearing its end, she wasn't ready to leap into something new. Still, there was no denying the chemistry between her and Travolta. After Preston's marriage ended, she and Travolta reconnected, and their love story began to take shape. They kept their early relationship private, but it progressed quickly behind the scenes. During a romantic New Year's Eve trip to Switzerland in 1991, Travolta surprised Kelly with a proposal at the luxurious Palace Hotel in Gstaad. She was so taken aback that she screamed in surprise before joyfully accepting. For Travolta, this moment signaled a turning point, not just a new chapter in his life, but the emotional rebirth he didn't know he was ready for. After years of heartbreak, he had found someone he could envision a future with once again. They were married that same year, but in a manner just as unconventional as heartrending. Married in Paris by a minister of the Church of Scientology, the couple held their first ceremonial union as devout followers of the sect. However, since it was not valid in terms of legality in the U.S., they held an official wedding in Daytona Beach, Florida. This has been the double ceremony to signify each other's sacred commitment not just to one another, but to the spiritual framework that had come to guide both of their lives. Travolta considered this marriage as more than just an act of unification. For him, this was a redirection to his hope, stability, and the emotional safety that were once thought to be inaccessible. Almost immediately, Kelly came to be Travolta's wife in every aspect. Though they created a family, faced public scrutiny, and weathered the vagaries of fame together. Her love did not erase the memory of Diana Highland, but allowed Travolta to heal and grow through Kelly's continuing support and kindness to help him not only bear past disappointments, but to open himself to new possibilities. His fondest wish came true with her, the kind of love denied ever since Diana died so young. In Kelly, Travolta did not just find a wife, he found restoration. The joys and trials of raising children. For John Travolta and Kelly Preston, raising children was more than a responsibility. It was a defining purpose in their lives. From the outset of their marriage in 1991, they approached parenting with a hands-on, unified mindset, determined to be present despite the demands of Hollywood. Their commitment wasn't just to provide, but to engage, attending school events, cooking meals together, and celebrating even the smallest milestones. In interviews, Travolta often spoke about the importance of creating a home that felt safe and grounded, especially in an industry that often promotes instability and excess. The couple also made intentional choices about their children's upbringing that set them apart from many celebrity families. Instead of enrolling them in elite Hollywood private schools or sending them off to boarding programs, they focused on building a strong family unit that prioritized emotional connection and shared values. Time spent together, whether on movie sets, traveling as a family, or enjoying downtime at home, was considered sacred. They treated parenting as a collaborative effort, always making sure their children saw both parents not only as providers, but as confidants and active participants in their lives. Their system relied upon strong pillars of creativity and self-expression. John and Kelly, accomplished performers in their own right, encouraged their children to follow their artistic inclinations without pressure. They believed in nurturing curiosity instead of forcing talent. Ella Bleu's natural attraction toward a life in acting and music was fostered by a childhood spent in dance lessons, exploring discussions of films, and exposure to artistic environments. Instead of using their celebrity status to push her ahead, they purposely allowed Ella to take her time, training, and ultimately gaining confidence on her terms. Admittedly, there were trials to face and hurdles to overcome. While the Travoltas tried their best to protect their family life, they were well aware that their fame could encroach upon it. They set limits on their children's exposure to red carpets and media attention from an early stage in their lives, so that when they grew up, they could decide whether to accept or prevent such exposure. They also taught their kids how to be resilient and respond gracefully to both praise and criticism. These trials offered a clear demonstration of John and Kelly's unwavering commitment to family life. Parenting, for them, was not only about love, but about intent, about consciously creating a home built on stability, honor, and freedom to develop. Haunted by loss. On January 2, 2009, John Travolta faced the kind of heartbreak no parent ever wants to imagine: the sudden death of his 16-year-old son, Jet. The Travolta family had been vacationing in the Bahamas over the New Year holiday when tragedy struck. Jet, who had a history of seizures, collapsed in the bathroom after suffering one and fatally struck his head on a bathtub. Despite frantic efforts to save him and a swift response from emergency personnel, nothing could be done. For John and Kelly Preston, the loss was immeasurable. The grief of losing their child was made worse by the unrelenting glare of the media and the torrent of speculation that followed. Jet had struggled with numerous health issues from an early age. Diagnosed with Kawasaki disease as a toddler, a rare condition that causes inflammation of the blood vessels, he also suffered from frequent, debilitating seizures. It was later confirmed by the family that Jet was on the autism spectrum, a detail that for years had been whispered about but never publicly acknowledged, possibly due to the Church of Scientology's rejection of common psychiatric diagnoses. The admission came after his death, and with it, renewed scrutiny over whether his condition had been adequately addressed, given the family's deeply held religious beliefs. The tragedy that befell Travolta's family essentially became a human spectacle, a pogrom of sorts, instigated by the media, almost imprinting Jet's death with Scientology's alleged principles. Conspiracy theorists accused the Travoltas of ignoring Jet's need for proper medical attention in favor of their religious beliefs, though there was no evidence whatsoever to suggest such a thing was true. Exhibitionistic debauchers and tabloids profiled the affair practically rather than offering a modicum of compassion, bathing the person in heavy judgment. Travolta, a broken man, found himself publicly questioned about how he took care of his son, his parental decisions, and his faith. While Travolta tried to maintain some kind of dignity under the pressure and protect his family from the media, he stated that Jet was a beautiful, loving boy with great courage and that he was greatly loved. Travolta summed up his son as the most wonderful boy you could ever meet, and said he would never recover from the pain of losing him. Grief was further complicated from within by all the feelings of guilt, exhaustion, and raw emotion encircling Travolta due to defending his family as they grappled with deep mourning. Jet's death was, above all, a most profound and bitter tragedy for Travolta, a public crucifixion that subjected him to a level of invasive grieving that few could withstand. Blackmail and blame. As if losing their son Jet wasn't devastating enough, the Travolta family soon found themselves embroiled in a shocking legal scandal that only deepened their trauma. In the weeks following Jet's death, one of the paramedics who had responded to the emergency, Tarino Lightbourne, was accused of attempting to extort $25 million from John Travolta. Lightbourne claimed he had in his possession a signed indemnity form, allegedly signed by Travolta, refusing emergency medical treatment for Jet. The implication was explosive, that Travolta's decisions that day had contributed to his son's death. Lightbourne threatened to release the document to the press unless the actor paid the demanded sum. The situation escalated quickly. Along with Lightbourne, a prominent Bahamian attorney and former senator, Pleasant Bridgewater was also charged in the blackmail scheme. Travolta, still deep in mourning, had to take the stand and recount the harrowing events of his son's final moments. He adamantly denied the claims and made it clear that his only priority that day had been to save Jet. He explained that the form in question was part of a standard medevac protocol and had been misunderstood, or deliberately misused. The legal ordeal forced Travolta to revisit his worst day over and over in a public courtroom. What made the case so agonizing was how it appeared to capitalize on Travolta's most sensitive moment. The trial turned into a media circus, with tabloids parsing every aspect and pundits making predictions about his motive. The courtroom became an emotional battleground, not only for justice, but for the truth regarding Travolta's status as a father. The defense's claims sometimes approached the level of character assassination, implying that the actor's choices were motivated by his religion or by care for his reputation. For Travolta, the judicial process was an emotional ambush, a brutal extension of the ordeal he had already suffered. Finally, in 2010, Travolta made the hard choice to back out of the case, saying that the protracted legal battle was too emotionally draining for himself and his family. Even though charges against Bridgewater and Lightbourne were later dropped, the harm had already been done. A period of time that could have been spent in private mourning was instead filled with legal debacle and public drama. The experience was a stark reminder that fame does not protect anyone from suffering, and, in some instances, only makes it larger. Just when it seemed the storm had passed, life delivered a heartbreak even deeper. The final blow. On July 12, 2020, Kelly Preston passed away at the age of 57 after a quiet, 2-year battle with breast cancer. Her illness had been kept private, known only to immediate family and a few close friends. She had undergone treatment at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, one of the leading institutions for cancer care. Her death came as a shock to the public, and it marked another cruel echo in John Travolta's life story. Having already lost Diana Highland, his first love, to the very same disease, Travolta found himself once again mourning the woman he had built a life with. This time, the grief came not just as a partner, but also as a father trying to hold his family together. Travolta and Preston had spent nearly 3 decades together, weathering some of the most profound joys and heartbreaks that life could deliver. They had raised 3 children, endured the loss of their son Jet, and stood side by side through career highs and personal trials. In interviews following her death, Travolta spoke candidly about the deeply personal nature of grief, stating that no 2 people mourn the same way. He explained that healing required space and silence, not public performance. As he stepped away from the spotlight to process the loss, he emphasized the importance of allowing his children, especially Benjamin and Ella, time to grieve on their own terms as well. Their daughter, Ella Blue Travolta, memorialized her mother in public tributes of her own. Travolta persists in keeping Kelly's memory alive in private thought and in public praise. On social media, he regularly posts family pictures with captions that express the extent of his current love and grief. In 2025, he shared a Mother's Day picture with Benjamin and Ella, stating that Kelly's impact continues in every nook and cranny of our lives. Having lost Diana and Kelly both to breast cancer, Travolta's existence is woven through a sorrow that has come full circle. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories behind the stars. Want more? Click the next video on your screen to keep watching. We've got another chapter you won't want to miss.